Thank you very much. I want to be very brief and to the point. First of all is to appreciate all those who are here. Honorable Mother Karua representing all of us as politicians because she is the senior most in this hall. Diana, all the other development partners who are here, World Bank, IMF, all the Kenyan organizations, and Kenyans again. Good afternoon. I have sat here and listened to those who have spoken before me, and I share most of the sentiments that they brought forth. And for a start, I always do this because it is important. Being a member of parliament, remember we have the role we play in the National Assembly, but there is what we do also in our constituencies. And I always like starting with the fact that in our small taxonomies, like Kiharu, I am very pleased, I'm actually going there today afternoon, that majority, actually all our public primary schools, we have given dignity. Tupige makofi tena, nimeona Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka. Kumbe Diana wewe ni moto namna hiyo. Thank you very much, yes. Thank you very much. Karibu sana, His Excellency. So I was just saying that it is important in my opening remarks that I say that I'm very proud of the work you are doing in Kiharu, and I'm actually going there this afternoon. All our public primary schools are well done. All the pupils in Kiharu, they actually go to classrooms which are all tiled, all of them, representing all the other amenities. We also run a program called Kiharu Masomo Bora, where we have subsidized school fees for day school learners. And in Kiharu, all the 12,500 learners in day secondary schools, they only pay 1,000 shillings per term. And they eat in school from Monday to Saturday. And actually, the last Friday of the month, for lunch, they eat chapati to make education exciting. Real chapatis, I mean. Now, today is, in my opinion, one of the most consequential days in Kenya, because one of the existential threats that Kenya faces is actually debt more than anything else. And I was with Diana a while ago. I was requesting her that we need to have a debt conference in Kenya. And I am glad that she was already ahead of us, and she has planned this day, because this agenda we are discussing today, ladies and gentlemen, is more important than most of the other things we can even talk about out there as politicians. Why? Kenya is currently indebted to a tune of over 12.5 trillion Kenya shillings. Mwai Kibaki got our national debt when it was 600 billion. Then, by the time he left, it was around 1.7, 1.8 trillion. So in 10 years, he borrowed a net of 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings with all that he did. President Uhuru Kenyatta took the debt from that debt of 1.7, 1.8 trillion to around 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings. And this is important for sequence. The current administration took the debt when it was around 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings. Currently, it is over 12.5 trillion Kenya shillings in 3 years. We are therefore borrowing 1.25 trillion Kenya shillings every single year. And every single day, on average, Kenya is borrowing around 3.5 billion Kenya shillings every day, including today, in Ajihesab. Every hour we are talking over 145 million Kenya shillings. So we've been here for around 4 hours. So you know what that has meant to our public debt. Now, the bigger problem I have, and I am glad the IMF representatives and the World Bank are here, that now Kenya is still borrowing very heavily on the normal book, which is now 12.5 trillion Kenya shillings. But it is unprecedented that Kenya is now opening more debt books We have the official books that we report, but Kenya has now come up with other methods of borrowing, ostensibly wanting not to include that in the part of the national debt. And they are using jargons, big names, so that by the time Kenyans are asking what it means, the loan is already taken. One, that issue is called securitization. I have been studying and saying that securitization is a crime because we are borrowing money off the book. The money we borrow is actually not passed in the budget. The person who is budgeting is actually the Minister for Transport. We have borrowed 175 billion Kenya shillings already. What we have done is to mortgage fuel levy that Kenya was to collect in the next 7 years. So the government is just saying, we are not anticipating any Kenya after 7 years. That is why we are taking all the revenue for the next 7 years today. The second thing, which is an illegal board, is called Talanta Board. Talanta Board, Kenya borrowed 44.5 billion Kenya shillings earlier in the year. The interest rate for that board, which is also an illegal loan, is 100 billion Kenya shillings. Interest rate alone, we are going to pay for the next 15 years. So when you corroborate and put together all that borrowing, then we are following the script of Senegal, the script of Zambia, and the script of other countries that have borrowed off the book, which we are doing our best in terms of parliament, but as Honorable Makari Muru stated here, and all Kenyans are alive to that. The kind of things we are talking about in this kind of a forum, as a member of parliament, is very solitary, because currently it's only a few of us who can actually talk about these things. Now, the third thing, and I stated I'll be very brief. Now, to want now to do things, to want to be seen to do things, now we are in a spree of selling government assets. And I have to say, myself, I am actually a proponent of privatization, because I don't believe in the government holding so much commercial interests. But this is the rider. As we privatize and as we sell government assets, the underlying factor and the bold word we have to have in our mind is something called valuation. Valuation is what is important. Why? When you go to a country like Zambia, during their privatization in the 1990s, privatization created Bajois of Zambia. In fact, it's not a coincidence that the current president of Zambia and the predecessor were part of the privatization then. One as a lawyer, one as a TA, transaction advisor. I don't think that is a coincidence. When you go to a country like Russia, when you talk about Russian oligarchs, majority of them were created out of privatization. Why? You simply give government assets for a song. And I want to state here, without blinking of an eye, I have been in the capital markets since I was in first year in campus. Maneno ya shares nimefanya from first year in campus. And I want Kenyans to know, what I'm talking about Safaricom, I have no vendetta, na sina fitina. The fact of the matter is that the sale of the 15% stake GOK owns in Safaricom, part of the 35 we own as public, the current negotiation is giving Kenya a raw deal. And the consideration is an undervaluation. And I heard the minister, my brother Buddy, talking about market prices. And I was wondering, my friend, you're talking about market prices in terms of shares. Shares go down today and tomorrow. So what is the real value when the share goes up or down? That is why every investor looks at the intrinsic value of the company. And if you look at all the other investors in the world, including Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, when they are investing in a company, they are never guided by market prices. And this is the reason, good Kenyans. Take a company like Kenya Power, which I know in and out. Kenya Power, the shares were trading at 1.8 shillings last year. So the valuation of Kenya Power was 4 billion. So the guys in the National Treasury are telling us that since it's about market prices, they would have sold Kenya Power for 5 billion. The current valuation of Kenya Power as we talk is 23 billion. So you are coming to tell us, since you are getting through market prices, that you can sell Kenya Power, an asset with 500 billion assets, based on market price, then you sell it at 23 billion. Is that what you are telling us, the National Treasury? A bank like KCB, where the government has a 19% stake, it's currently trading at 0.6 to book value. So if you are talking about market prices, so you are telling us you can sell KCB at half its shareholders' funds because of market prices. I am just trying to say, the parameter of selling a block sale in shares is not measured by how much the share is in the market. And we have to also say this. Kenya Power was trading at 45 shillings in 2021. That was before, sorry, Safaricom. Safaricom was trading at 45 shillings per share in 2021. They have since invested in Ethiopia. Listen to me, Kenyans. Because this debate we are having is worth more than 100 billion more to Kenya. Safaricom was trading at 45 shillings per share in 2021. Now, by then, it was valued at 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings. They have now already invested in Ethiopia. And the market in Ethiopia is already responding. So you are telling us you can buy a plot at 450,000, plot without anything in it. You build a flat in it. You start collecting rent. Then after 4 years, you sell the plot and the flat together for 340,000. Is that possible, dear Kenyans? So I'm requesting the National Treasury and the government, if there is no self-interest in the sale of Safaricom, make the process open. If there is no incompetence in the sale of the 15% GOK stake in Safaricom PLC, make the process competitive. Open the process for other bidders to bid for those shares. Let the current buyer bid. Let another telco bid. Give Kenyans a chance to bid. Give Kenyan funds a chance to bid, because we are going to realize better value for that stake when we open it up for all Kenyans and every other buyer to bid and buy. And as I say this, I am challenging again my brother, Honorable Bandi. I have information more than the one I can talk to you now here. If they are confident, you know, I am seeing them talking about market prices. Market prices, market prices. Now, US government, you already come in public earlier this year. It's the National Treasury. If you look at some of the interviews the CS for the National Treasury has done on TV, he has been on TV saying, we are very desperate. We need to raise money. You've already sent a signal to any buyer that you are desperate. Then you go to a negotiating table, you've already blooded yourself here, desperate, and then you go to a negotiation, and in that negotiation, and I want to make it very clear, there were people who purported to represent the government of Kenya in the sale of Safaricom PLC. People who are not government employees participated in the negotiations of the sale of the 15% stake. And the same people, there are things they do with the buyers. So Kenyans are getting a raw deal for personal reasons. And I want to make it clear, this cannot be allowed to happen. Because we can get much more. There are lawyers in this hall. In a negotiation or in a transaction, there is something called conditions precedent. If, you know, the reason why I am pitting my brother, the CS of National Treasury, is that he's just a spokesman for this deal. He was actually not in the negotiations. And if you want to challenge me, I am ready, because I know. Wacha nimaliza na kitu ya mwisho. Acha nimaliza na kitu ya mwisho. As we do the kind of things we are doing, it is important to know that there is something we are calling infrastructure fund. Infrastructure fund is two things. Forget about all the other things. I think now as Kenyans we are used to grandiose marketing of projects. But we know the real utility when it happens. Forget about how it is being marketed. Infrastructure fund is two things. Privatizing government assets. Number two, more borrowing. Just watch the steps, not the lips of the people promoting it. The other thing they want to do through infrastructure fund is to remove development from the budget. We want to run two budgets in Kenya. One, they are running away from the responsibility of recurrent expenditure, which is social investment. And then we want to create another budget on the side for development expenditure. That is why ordinarily, when you privatize a government assets, it goes into the budget. Because the government does more than building roads. It pays teachers, it builds schools, and the other social investments. Now, the government wants to run away from the social investments, create an infrastructure fund to privatize more, but after privatizing, to use that money to borrow more. So the plans of the National Treasury, they've already securitized fuel levy, which is collecting fuel levy in advance. 175 billion taken, in the process of another one for 75 billion. Second thing is sports fund, already securitized 44.5 billion Kenya shillings loan, which you are paying 100 billion Kenya shillings in interest rate alone. They're in the process, listen to this, of securitizing your housing levy. And me, I don't talk things just for the sake of talking. They are now in the process of collecting your housing levy now, to use it now. You give political claps now, but the burden is in the future. So my question has been, including in this Safaricom sale, and sorry I've talked very fast to cover a lot. You are going to the negotiations, take dividends in advance, give a 15 billion discount on the dividend alone, and I'm asking, kwani Kenya inaenda wapi? You are collecting money for next year and the other year today. Kenya inaenda wapi?